is a private, nonprofit operating foundation. We own and steward 2,400 acres in Kohala, the Iole Ahupua'a, and a little bit of land outside that Ahupua'a. And our organization was co-founded by Bennett Dorrance Jr. and Tui Fujimoto. And the mission of our organization is to provide opportunities to connect with the land and universal values for a better world. And our universal values are the values of we call them grace values: gratitude, respect, accountability, courage, and engagement. And the foundation was started, the legal name of the foundation is New Moon Foundation. Okay. It's still the legal name. It's doing business as Kohala Institute at Iole, and that name change occurred about 2 years ago when our co-founders decided they wanted to honor where the foundation was actually located in Kohala, and they wanted to really convey their mission and what they were looking to do with the word institute in creating, in utilizing the land as a living laboratory for exploration of science, of cultural practices, of land, responsible land and water management, of all of those aspects, really practical applications. Come in and connect with the environment, connect with yourself, connect with others, and explore universal values of grace. So that's where we started, and that's what they've been doing. For several years, they've been deciding on what to do with the foundation. So in the meantime, we had 6 public trails, and people would come up and utilize the property while our co-founders were waiting and really looking at a number of proposals and trying to figure out what they wanted to do and how they would be fulfilling their mission through the foundation and through the land. And I joined the foundation back in February of 2014, and my role is as executive director, and my first task was to come up with a strategic plan for where the foundation could go, which is an amazing opportunity and overwhelming all at the same time.
Open-ended.
Right. So we started with, everybody has an idea. Everybody has 10 ideas. And so we started with, okay, what would it look like in 50 years? And 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, because the practical reality is you have to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. And we ended up with a strategic plan that just focuses on the next 5 years. We have a parking lot of ideas that people are still welcome to give us and that we will consider. But for right now, we're working on just what's in our 5-year strategic plan in the areas that we're focused on, which is on the Mauka side of Akonipule Highway, in the area right around the homestead where our offices are and around the Kohala Girls School.
So to get me on the area, this is Bob Martin with KNKR. I know you came, I think, from the Hilo side.
Right.
And so I'm curious about, what you were doing and what your background is and how much you know about Kohala and to what extent you may have family here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was born and raised in Hilo. My maiden name is Callis. I come from the Callis family, and my mom's family is the Correa family, a very big baseball family and a family of educators. On the Callis side, my great-grandfather and great-grandmother are from here. So my great-grandmother was born in Pololu, and my great-grandfather was born in Kapa'au. And I am still learning all of the genealogy. I just remember as a kid, we always came up here for our family reunions, and I remember coming up in the bus and going to the grave sites and, Grandma did this, Grandpa did this. They actually were the drivers of the sampan bus between Kohala and Hilo, and that's how they ended up back in Silkaha. So I'm still exploring that genealogy on that aspect, and it's something that, is neat that it happens that it was also here. In terms of my background, I'm a graduate of Hilo High School. And after high school, I left and I went to college and law school in Washington, D.C., and I spent about 18 years in D.C. I was, including college and law school, and then I was in the Army JAG Corps on active duty.
You survived 18 years in Washington, D.C., and it didn't hurt you?
No.
How were you able to stay immune?
I had a wonderful boss. The majority of the time I spent in D.C. after the JAG Corps, I worked for Senator Akaka. I was his counsel in D.C.
Okay.
I was his deputy legislative director, and then...
okay, you're an attorney.
Yes. And then at the end of my tenure up there, I was the Democratic Staff Director for the Veterans Affairs Committee. So it was a wonderful experience. So I survived largely because I worked for a wonderful man who had the core values of aloha, and saw it as his, as our whole kuleana as a staff to pretty much show Capitol Hill what it meant to live aloha in everything that we did.
Right. Well, they certainly don't normally follow.
Right. Well, we were successful in what we did, at least. Yeah. So, when I was there, I met my husband, who's from Molokai, and we got married, and we both ended up working for Senator Akaka, and we spent a number of years up there. And we had always promised our families, because they're so large, that no matter what we were doing in Washington, when we had children, we would come back to Hawaii. And because I won the Junkin poll, that we would come to Hilo and raise our children in Hilo.
I see.
So when we had children, we moved back. And when we moved back, I ended up working for First Wind, which is, at the time was UPC. And we built the wind farms on Maui and Oahu. I was the Director of Government and Community Relations. And then after that, I went back to Native advocacy, and I ran a Native advocacy firm called Tuli Soup, where I worked with Native Hawaiian groups, Alaska Natives, and Indian tribes on community-based economic development, advocacy, and communication.
Wow. So you still live in Hilo, or are you moving here? Or?
No, I live in Hilo, and I commute to Kohala.
You commute
every day?
Every day?
No, not every day. I'm in Kohala 4 days, and I'm in Hilo 3 days.
Oh, okay. So, but you do drive over here 4 days a
yes,
week?
I'm here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Wow, that's big on its own. So it's what an asset for our community to have you here.
Thank you.
I mean, what a background. What a background. So you've been here since February of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
A year and a half. And what's been your take on Kohala as it exists today, and the place where you're working, and how Iole fits into the community? What is your thinking about that? What have you learned?
It was funny when I first. Well, first of all, Kohala reminds me a lot of Molokai.
And people have said,
right,
we are sisters,
right,
because they are isolated and we are isolated. Different ways, but we got a mountain and they got the ocean. So.
Right. And although I'm not born and raised on Molokai, I spent a lot of time there with my husband's family, but also when I handled Native Hawaiian issues for Senator Akaka, I spent a lot of time on Molokai.
Oh, wow.
And also when I was working in renewable energy, so I have a lot of aloha for there. And that community taught me a lot of lessons, and Kohala really reminds me of that as well. I have my own childhood memories of what Kohala was, largely because my family is athletic. So, I just remember coming for every baseball game and every basketball game that was in this gym, and going home late at night. And I remember horses on the side of the road, and I remember all of, that growing up. It was, having been away for 18 years and then coming back, it was quite a change when I came back to Kohala.
And so what was the major big change?
I think the difference was that, growing up, Kohala was largely a plantation town, right? Much like many of the other towns on the Hamakua coast, right? So seeing when the plantation went away and seeing other people come in and purchase land and the challenges that a community deals with in terms of being open and diverse and having to figure out how does everybody get to live together and how do we build trust, right, to be able to share.
And how do we learn to collaborate with each other? Sometimes we can't even talk to each other.
Correct, right. And how do we break down the walls of just nicely saying, of nicely smiling.
Yes.
And in my experience in community advocacy and having tons of meetings with very controversial issues, I'd have clients who would say, that meeting went great, everybody smiled. I said, that was the worst meeting we possibly could have had, because everybody smiled. They didn't think that it was worth their time to share their mana'o, so that was a complete fail, right?
Yeah.
So, it's understanding the cultural differences, the cultural nuances, and the cues, and I'm learning every day. I mean, I think nobody ever knows them all, right? So that's part of, so when I came back and started working here, that was like, and then understanding the history of New Moon, Sweetwater, Iole Hawaii, and what they have been trying to do, but also what some of the perceptions were about starting and stopping and things.
And
So
there's probably still learning on that area.
right,
And
right.
because that covers a long period of time.
Right.
15 years.
right.
Yeah.
So many. I mean, to answer your question, I mean, I think both Iole and Kohala, right, are undergoing a lot of transition, and that's just a microcosm and example of the transition facing our island, our state, our nation as we address many of the issues, right? So Iole, I think, has a very good place to play. I mean, in terms of some of the programming that we're working on is definitely focused on leadership skills for youth. You know, our focus is on Kupuna and Kiki.
Yes.
And, you know, our mission-based programming is really focused on youth. And we have the Grace Learning Journey, the Grace Leadership Journey. And in the Grace Leadership Journey, that's really being created and based on my experiences as an Omidyar Fellow, which is a leadership program out of the Hawaii Leadership Foundation.
Right.
But in terms of that program being one that teaches students the tools, whether it's communications or time management or, you know, leadership from the side, leadership from the back, all of that, and then give them an opportunity to actually practice it as a cohort.
Now, is that program in place now?
No, that program will likely start in May of 2016 because that will be a 15-month program where we'll have a cohort of 15 kids from all over the island, from different schools. So what we want is diversity from where they're from, diversity in what kind of schools they go to, public school, charter school, home school, private school, and from different locations. So, you know, we would want to have, for example, a student from South Point, you know, as well as students from Kohala, students from Kona, students from Hamakua, Hilo, Waimea. So, because many of us don't get to even meet each other or hear those viewpoints until we're sitting across the table.
Right. I know there's a great deal of interest at the middle school, for example, here in that leadership program and trying to find a way to fit into that for the students here. So,
right.
Are you aware of that too?
Yes, I just spoke with Wendy.
Yeah. All right. There you go.
We have a meeting today.
Oh, good.
Meeting.
All right. Well, I'm very interested in that leadership program too, personally.
So Grace Leadership Journey is one of those programs, but also we are renovating the Grace Center. The old Kohala Girls School.
Yes.
The new name is Grace Center. Again, Grace is not a person. I've had a couple people say, "Who's Grace and why did you name it after her?" It's gratitude, respect, accountability, courage, and engagement. But what that facility will be is it'll be a multi-purpose facility that will have classrooms, but it'll also have large areas where you can hold conferences, summits. We can hold community events there. So if someone wants to have a birthday luau or a fundraiser or a wedding or something like that, it'll really be open for people can come and rent it and use it for those kinds of things. We also were successful with a distance learning grant from USDA, so we will also have distance learning capacity there, and we are in discussions with some post-secondary education facilities, University of Hawaii at Hilo, and some others, to be able to provide better access for Kohala residents to post-secondary education.
Very nice. Very nice.
Currently, like, let's say tomorrow or Tuesday, what is going on there?
Right now, we are in rebuild mode.
Okay.
So to answer your question, most frankly, nothing.
Okay. No, well, that's why I just wanted to know. Yes.
We had all of our trails are closed right now.
Okay.
Primarily because we're doing construction.
Yeah, I knew they were doing construction,
right.
But and you said what you were building.
Right. So we're doing with the renovation of the Grace Center. We're also having to build a new reservoir. I mean, we're having to put in the entire infrastructure that goes with a facility like that and bringing it up to code.
And this funding is coming from?
We have grants and donations. That's where our funding comes from largely. So we're actively fundraising.
Okay.
You know, and I always it's a wonderful opportunity to have such well-established co-founders, but sometimes that's a challenge too. I'll go out and I'll start fundraising and somebody will say, isn't Senate involved? Why are you fundraising? Or isn't we involved with this? And a large part of that is I understand, but one of my biggest challenges in fundraising is helping people to understand that I don't have my co-founders don't give us blank checks, right? Our foundation is a separate organization that has to be financially sustainable on our own.
Yes.
So we don't get to go, there is no bank that we get to go to internally.
You're like any nonprofit.
Correct.
You're always
We're
hunting
like
for
all
money
other nonprofits.
and all other nonprofits.
Right.
And you're talking to a nonprofit here.
Correct.
Kohala Radio. And
so we can commiserate.
We understand, and finding out where the money's buried is very important.
Right.
Fortunately, we're connected with the Resource Center, Kohala Community Resource Center, and they know where the money's buried. So it's always helpful to have that.
But there's never enough.
There's never enough.
Right.
Never
Exactly.
enough.
And for me, it's also it's helping people to understand the difference now from what it may have been before.
Right. I understand that. Well, it's really quite impressive. I miss the trails. I miss walking up there. I do 7 miles a day, and I miss going up there and pumping around. It's great. They're great walks up there.
Well, we are slowly revamping the trails. So we're going to have a volunteer day on July 22nd, and we'll be redoing the historic trail to take it out of the construction area. That's one of the smaller trails.
And you'll reopen it?
Right. And then we'll reopen it later this summer after we get it fixed up. And then the other larger trails, we have to wait until construction is complete.
I'm a guide at the Welcome Center and on Saturdays, and it's never a Saturday that I don't get at least a couple or two wanting to have a good mountain walk, not the ocean walk.
Right.
And having to tell them that the Eole is no longer open, their trails are not open, is hard.
Right.
Because you have one of the best, if not the best, trails.
Right.
For that.
When do you anticipate the construction to be over and that those trails might be able to reopen?
The construction of the girls' school is scheduled to be is scheduled to be completed in March of 2016. The construction of some of our other activities like KI Fish will be done hopefully before that. So at that point, we'll reassess where we are and what is necessary. Now is also a good opportunity for us to help make those trails a little bit better than what they previously were. Better signage.
Better signage would be good, because you can't get lost up there.
Right.
You can't get really lost, but you can displace yourself.
Right, and to improve the trails. So the answer is I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
Exactly when everything is going
to... Well, that's why I get the big bucks, to ask the hard questions.
That's right.
Right, the big volunteer. I know there were a number of agricultural efforts at Eole. How does that stand? I know Peter Riesling seems to be moving on to another place, and so do you still do farming there?
Yes.
You're going to plan to grow your own food?
Both.
Both.
So we have program partners that that are staying on, and we have some program partners who are moving on.
Right.
In our strategic plan, what we have is the reopening and renovation of the Grace Center to be a multi-purpose education center. We have KI Fish, which is our fish farm. We are planning on doing a 30-acre ag park, which will also feature our Veteran to Farmer program. And then we will have something called KI Tours, which is a tour for local and the visitor market. That looks at land and water management at Eole during the pre-contact era, the plantation era, the missionary era, and the post-plantation era, with the idea of what were best practices, how did it happen, and given all of the challenges that we're looking at now, what can we learn from all of those 4 historic periods as we move forward, and what can we take with us? So sometimes, so each period has good and bad with it.
Right.
And so learning from that and really doing a kind of practical hands-on more sort of tour. So all of that is in development. Our top 2 priorities for 2015 are the Grace Center and KI Fish.
Right. And
again, largely because we have great mission-based programs that we want to be able to provide to the community and anyone else who is interested. But we also have to have financial revenue to be able to do those mission-based programs.
Sure.
So we need to have some financial, sustainable activities like the fish farm.
Is the water system there self-contained, and you're providing your own water?
Yes.
That's okay. And since you're going to kind of fix that or upgrade it and rearrange it so that it'll be more modern and or sustainable. Is that what you're trying to do?
And so the strategic plan we've developed is based on a systems engineered, systems integrated approach. So our entities and our organizations are placed where we can have multiple uses of the resources. So, for example, the water that's utilized for KI fish comes from one of our tunnels. It goes through the KI fish system, gets regularly filtrated, and then it goes into our agricultural activities.
Yes.
Right, and gets reused there, and then goes into another agricultural activity and gets reused there. So the same water gets used 3 to 4 times before it's
Fabulous.
well, it gets used up.
Yeah. What else is important that you'd like to convey about Iole to listeners?
I think that people ask us, and we are more than happy to share what we're doing, but we haven't come out and done a whole unveil
outreach,
or,
yeah.
unveil of everything we're doing. Because in my experience, what I've learned is that people want to see. They want to see what you're doing. They don't want to necessarily hear what you're planning on doing.
They want to see the results.
Right.
Oh, so, boy, do we know that.
Yes, we do.
So it's there's no secrets. We're not hiding. If people want to know, they can call us, and I'm happy to talk to them. I'm happy to come to any community organization, any board meeting, and I have been going out and talking to people. But, what we're trying to do is hit the balance right where we can share what we're doing, but also with a timeline so people can then come up and see things versus let me tell you about it, but you won't be ready for another 4 years, right?
Yeah.
And we are very focused on workforce development and education as well. So as we do our entities, like our fish farm, for example, then we have jobs. We're then we're trying to train people up, and so that they have training whether they work with us long term or not.
Or not, and you'll have a staff of approximately how many?
It depends on which entity. So right now we have 7 full-time at that are running everything, and the reason we can do that is because we're very lucky to have very good program partners.
Yes.
So it'd be impossible for us to manage the land with a staff that small, but because we have good ranching program partners, good agricultural program partners, we're able to share in the land management, taking care mowing, taking care of things, that angle.
Real world activities.
Right. So as we grow our entities, we have staffing projections, but we're trying to balance between what is sustainable. In a perfect world, I can tell you I would like to have 25 people for this entity.
Yes.
I don't know if I could pay them all. So I have to match it with revenue.
Well, that's the way the radio is working. We're saying we're going to stay volunteer until we can get enough money not to be. So, that may never happen.
Right.
We're all volunteers today, so we'll see. Well, that sounds like a real exciting future coming for you. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, nice to meet you finally. I know I've talked to you on the phone, but it's
and on email.
Yeah, and email too. Yeah, so nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, it was a pleasure hearing about it and learning, because I'm learning and meeting you. And certainly KNKR wants to be involved. So if you have press release or anything you want disseminated, we're happy to help out.
Oh, fantastic.
PSAs and so forth and so on. Yes.
We will definitely take advantage of that.
Yes, so we're happy to do PSAs for any public service and nonprofit organizations in Kohala. So.
Thank you. We're here for you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, very important part of the community.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and you're listening to KNKR and LP 96.1, Kohala Radio, and we're here at the 2015 Kohala Reunion, and I think we're going to get Tony here, and she has some important information she'd like to bestow upon us. It is quiet, I will admit, right now here at the reunion. The activity was much stronger yesterday, but there's still people milling around, and there's also a few tables where there's like groups of people talking and discussing stuff. And I see Boyd Bondi actually out there showing some people some pictures and stuff under Kohala's pride and Kohala's future. So there definitely is activity. And if you do want to see what's going on in the gymnasium, I recommend that you get here this afternoon, because the gym will be closed tomorrow, even though the reunion will be still going on. The gym itself will be closed as the summer fun activity program for the kids will be starting again. Okay, so Tony, are you guys ready to go on? Oh, they're still talking in front of me, and so are you ready? Yes. Okay, so
I got hearing aids, so speak up
okay,
when you ask a question.
okay. So Bob, want to take it away?
Well, I just want to introduce Tony Whittington, who's a long-term resident of Kohala and probably one of the most active people in the community over the years, and has been active in many different ways. And so we just want to talk to her today about her current thinking and her current interests and what she's up to. So, Tony, how long have you lived in Kohala, and when was your first time coming here?
I moved here the same year the mill closed, 1975.
1975.
I was living in Waimea at the time, so I'd been in Waimea for over 5 years, and then I moved up here in 75.
So you've seen everything for the post-plantation days occurring almost from day one.
It was a reason that I appealed to the committee of the reunion to take on the interpretation of Kohala's history to include the 40 years since the mill closed, because this was the anniversary of when the mill closed. And up to now, we have pretty much focused on the early days, ancient times, and the plantation period. And for a while, it just seemed like Kohala history ended with the plantation, and when it hasn't. Half the people who live in Kohala weren't here when the plantation was.
So back in the first reunion, there wasn't a post-plantation.
This is the first time.
Neither, yes. So, after 4, we're finally at the point. For 40 years, we're going to place some interest in that area.
Yeah,
and that's great.
We've never focused on it before, and it was interesting for me to do research as I was putting together the exhibits for it from the library and from sources and all people who have been around and watched the changes. It was interesting to see how little we have in our library about this period of time, and some of the very important historical elements that took place during this time are not documented at all.
So there's a lot of work to be done.
There is a lot of work to be done, and I see this just as the beginning.
We have to start talking to all of us older people before we go away and leave all that memories.
Well,
Don't leave that memory.
nobody writes history better than those who live it.
Yes.
It's very hard to write history when you don't have anyone around who remembers what took place.
So how is this project going to continue after the reunion? What's your thinking about how that will unfold?
Well, one of the things that I discovered as I was doing research on this period of time is that once the plantation closed down, the focus was very strongly on creating jobs. Jobs were very important because most of our population was employed by the plantation, and the assumption was that these people would need jobs. And indeed, the task force that the government put up to fund new businesses here was focused solely on jobs. And the task force funds, while it was a very shadowy period of time in our history, and which is interesting to document as well.
Does that mean that we're not exactly sure where all the money went?
We're not sure where the money went, but what we do know is that some of the money went to create things that have been of big benefit to Kohala, one being Lapakahi State Park, and the second one being the survival of the Kohala Nursery, which is, over the 42 years of its history, hired over 800 people in Kohala. So there are successes in terms of employment with the task force. But one of the things that I was noticing as I was looking is that so much of our economy in North Kohala is based not on necessarily jobs or solely on jobs. It's more based on people who, under their own enterprise, have chosen to live in Kohala and have taken up on their own business figuring out a way that they can live in Kohala and make a viable living. And so they have either created businesses for themselves, or they've learned services that they can offer to people, or they've opened stores, or they've gone into arts and artisanship. They've gone into health and wellness. They've gone into fields in which they can live here and still make a living. And I think that is a basic fact that we don't know about. And that's why I've spent some of my time doing the research on it, trying to focus on who are these people and how much of our economy is based on self-started, Kohala-owned businesses.
Kohala owned and operated here.
Owned and operated businesses that doesn't reach outside the community for its base.
Yes.
That it generates here. And what I'm finding is that a lot
Yes.
of people in Kohala are either self-started, in other words, they're making all of their living from an enterprise that they have started or their family has started, or they're making at least a portion of their family. They may have a part-time job somewhere, but they also are making money on the side doing something else.
Uh-huh.
So, and I think the reason I think it's important to find out about this is because it's a good message to give to our high school students as they face the decisions about what they want to do with their lives. And if what they want to do with their lives is stay in Kohala, they have a lot of resources here that can help them do that.
Who have experienced resources in doing what they might want to do. In other words, developing a career or an income stream while living here.
Right.
That
they
allows
can make
them,
choices.
they can make choices.
They've got more choices. It used to be they had a choice. The first choice was you work for the plantation or you work for the county or the state. And that was it.
Right.
And the next one was work at the hotels, or work in the visitor industry.
Right.
But now we have so many more choices, and some of the choices are much more vibrant and much more speaking to the hearts of young people who want to make a living. There's
Right.
things they can do that is specific to them. They can go out and get a specific education to head them in that direction. And when they come back, they have this bank of people who have been doing things similar to it who can offer them
Some mentor and coaching and
tell me,
support.
this is a good way to do it. That's probably you want to avoid doing that. There's all these people, natural mentors in our community who could help our young people.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how your work continues to get larger and larger and have more and more impact. And do you have a way that you're thinking about going about collecting the information that will add to your whole set of understanding of all this in the community?
Yes, I think so. And this is one of the things we started at the post-plantation in this reunion, is to start a list of all the businesses that are like that are self-owned, self-generated, and Kohala here alone. And if we can get an understanding of that, we can keep that record in the library, in the Kohala room of the library. We can keep it with the Heritage Center as they begin to explore the history of Kohala in this last 40 years. And the schools can use it too. That teachers can understand that their students are heading not just towards a job career-oriented path, but they have available to them a path where they can make choices and do things that specifically allow them to stay in this area.
Okay, we're talking. Bob Martin is interviewing Tony Witherington, and we're here on KNKR Radio 96.1, and we're actually at the 2015 Kohala Reunion. And what else, Bob?
Well, I think I want to make sure that our listeners know how to get in touch with you if they have thoughts and ideas and can support you in any way. So, Tony, is there Can they go to the library and ask about it, or should they call you, or how? If somebody wants to get involved to help and support this effort, what would they call you?
I'll tell you one of the best ways, and this is something that would really help out our community. I am a member of most of the subcommittees of the CDP, and all of the meeting times of the subcommittees of the CDP are listed in the Mountain News. They're held regularly every month, and if anybody wants to get in touch with me and talk to me, that's a good place to meet, because we'll be talking about issues that are important to the community, and hopefully people can learn more about that. But I can also be reached by phone.
Okay, you want to give us
My phone number is 884-5476.
All right.
And we can talk about Kohala things. That's always on my mind.
It's always on mine. I know it's on yours. Thank you, Tony. That's great. Appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. I know you're busy.
Thank you. And I just so much enjoy your radio. I think it's one of the nicest things that's happened here.
Oh, thank you. We're having fun, too.
Thank you, Tony.
All right.
Bob, if you'll get, we have Fred. So what we're going to try to do now is get a couple of people together for another interview. But Bob was just taken away talking to some taiko drummers, and I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen from there. We have a couple of possibilities. So let's see where we're at. In the meantime, until Bob gets around to it, funny. I want to remind people that we're going to start Tuesday at 10 o'clock with our shows with a limited soft opening. And we're going to have on Tuesday Your Kohala Connection, and that's going to be with Forrest. And then on Wednesday, Wednesday Women's Voices with Iva Allgood. And then on Thursday, Riding Home with Swap Shop, as well as Eco Talk with Holly Allgood. And then we're going to have Friday, Riding Home with Carol T. And Saturday, Swap Shop. So those are our soft start openings. And I hear some music in the background. And let's see. All right. Bob, are we ready?
And we're going to go back live to the Kohala Reunion with Len. Len, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Carol T. And we're here again at the Kohala Reunion of 2015. And we have with us Sincere and Cade from the Taiko Drummers organization from Kohala, right? You guys are the local brand of Taiko. And what do you want to tell us that you're going to be performing, and what else do you want to tell us?
Hi, everyone in North Kohala. I'm Cade Nickel.
And I'm Sincere Nalara Bang.
We are representing Ryukyu, Koku, Matsuri Deku Kohala, and Waimea.
We perform Okinawan Asa taiko drumming in chapters around the world.
You've probably seen us perform around town and around the island.
We have free classes every Thursday from 5:30 p.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. at James Walker Hall next to St. Augustine Church.
Come join us for exercise and fun.
Call our leader, Kathy Matsuda, at 1-808-895-2025.
Okay, very good. So, and you're going to perform now?
Yes, we will be performing at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock, so we'll hear the drums. Yes. I remember when you guys, well, maybe it was before you guys, but like 6-7 years ago, when we were, when we were at the gym.
Yeah.
And so you guys would come on Thursday night when we were playing ping pong. I let Sadie bring the group, and you guys were all practicing, and it was fun because we couldn't hear the ball as we were hitting. But it was pretty good because if we could concentrate through that, we could concentrate at all times. So you guys did really good then. I remember listening all the time.
Thank you.
Bob, you need a mic. Bob, you need a microphone. Yeah, but nobody can hear you. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay.
Thanks
We'll be listening.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Oh, you're welcome. Wendy, Len Winkler. Len Winkler. Maybe Sadie. I see. Okay. Okay. We need Fred and her back, please. So where did Fred go? Oh, well, this is what happens when you do live radio. I had Fred here, and then there he is. There he is. He's right over there. I need him because we're going to sit down. The Fred and her. Fred is right there and her. So that's what they. Yes, I need them here. So, okay, you're listening to KNKR 96.1 Kohala Radio, and we're waiting now. Fred Kochola is going to bring his guest that he wants, and it's going to be pretty interesting actually because it's from 1931 to 1939. Oh, she's right there. She's right there. Right there. Come on. Come on down, as they say on The Price is Right. So, Fred, do you want to wear the headset or... Okay. This will be a very interesting interview. I have a lot of enthusiasm. I see pictures and stuff from the 1930s. So if you want to know some history, now you're going to know it. Okay, we've got Fred Kochola here. And Fred, you want to introduce somebody?
Hi, folks out there. I wish you were here to meet some very, very interesting people. With us right now is Claire Hayashi Palmer. Claire was born and raised here in Kohala, and her parents were very famous teachers. Her father was Fred Hayashi, first graduating class, Kohala High School.
The first one?
The first class.
How many were in that? Do you know? How many people graduated?
Not very many.
Like
But-
5 or...
Yeah.
May I continue, please?
Sure.
So I'm introducing Claire, just giving you some quick background on who she is. Her father was Fred Hayashi from Poea, and Japanese descent, and went to the university. First graduating class from Kohala High School. First graduate from university in Kohala. First person who graduated when he returned in 1930 from the University of Hawaii. Folks, this introduction is really important. He was carried on the shoulders of villagers from Ho'ea and presented with the silver-plated trophy. And it was presented by all the proud Japanese in Kohala who were saying, at last, we have a university graduate, and he is coming home to teach. May I read to you what her father wrote about this trophy? It says, Shin Minato Trophy, presented to Fred S. Hayashi on the occasion of his graduation from the University of Hawaii, June 10th, 1930, by the Yamaguchi Ken Prefecture, Ken Minato Club of Honolulu. And it was presented to him. That's how much they felt about Fred Hayashi. He came back, he taught at Halawa School in the 1930s, to 39, and then they demolished Halawa School. And if you guys go on a historic tour, there's a sign out there that tells you where the school was.
Oh.
Right next to Father Damien's church. It was across the school. Anyway, and Claire was born in the 40s. No, 30s.
1940.
1940. And her mom was my third grade teacher, and her father was my seventh grade teacher, the last teacher I had before I went to Kamehameha School. So, good folks, I'm so happy to see Claire. And guess what? The story no fall. I go to the war. I'm in the Korean War. I come out. I get a GI Bill. I go to college in Iowa. I want to become a teacher. I'm at Iowa State Teachers College. I'm a junior. I'm looking over the girls in a freshman class. And guess who I see among the freshman class? Claire Hayashi. And I said, my goodness, Claire, what are you doing? She said, I'm here to go to school just like you. Can you imagine? I think this was in 1959. And two of us from Halaula are going to college at Cedar Falls, Iowa, to become teachers. Well, I went on.
Small world.
Small world. I went on to become a teacher, came back, taught in Wina. She fell in love with one of my good friends in college. His name was Bob Palmer. and he joined the wrong fraternity. I was trying to get him to come with me to Alpha Chi Epsilon. He went to the Phi Sig. He went with the big shot. But anyway, he married Claire, and they stayed up there and taught, and we still live at
Cedar Falls, Iowa.
Cedar Falls, Iowa. So,
Wow.
ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let you guys interview this most interesting lady about her parents and all of her life growing up in Halaula with famous parents who were longtime teachers. Okay, Claire, go for it. Tell us about your early days.
Yes, it's a joy to be back in Kohala. My father always wanted to come back to Kohala, even when he was in his 90s. We always asked, when are we going to Kohala? We wanted to. But I wanted to tell you that I learned so much about Kohala's history through my father, because when my brother and I were, about ready to go to bed, we had a choice. My mother would read to us, and she did a beautiful job of reading, some of the classics and so forth. Or we could listen to my father tell stories about old Hawaii. But most of the time, we chose my dad's stories because he was very animated. And when he would tell the stories, he would pretend he was on a horse, or he would pretend he was driving the car, whatever. I learned about what Kohala was in the early days, and I learned about my grandfather, too. I learned when the first car came to Kohala.
When?
And I think it was the Sugiyama who owned the car, and he had a taxi or something. I learned about the outdoor theater and how they would go. It was a real treat to go there. And, of course, it was silent. There were silent movies.
And it was an outdoor theater?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so they had somebody playing the music, playing, I don't know if it was a piano or whatever kind of an instrument, but it was, it was the silent film.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But a lot about the people and all the different camps, about the people within the camps and, what they did. I had a chance to see a cockfight when I wasn't supposed to. But I sneaked down there to see what was going on. That was something new for me. But my father told me about how the different communities work together. And within the Japanese camps, how they helped each other, loaning money, when they... And according to my grandmother, there were some people who still owed my grandfather money. but how they encouraged one another. For example, when my dad decided to go to University of Hawaii, I'm sure that there were some people who must have slipped in what little money they had to help my dad through school. But it was all, the expression it takes a community to raise a child. But it was true. My uncles and aunts all helped in some way or another. And when my father was going to school, at the university, he drove a cab, he washed clothes, he did whatever work he could to earn extra money. There were no, scholarships in those days, so it was really, but he took so much pride in Kohala, and he loved the people, and he was very proud of, the accomplishments of Kohala people. Well, he met my mother through some kind of a university function. And I remember my mother said she was a member of some Japanese club or whatever, and they needed an entertainer. And she heard that there was this young man at the university, a Japanese from Hawaii, who could play the ukulele. So she asked my dad, Fred, to play. And he said, I will, if you will go out with me.
Oh, right.
So that's how they met. And the story goes that after, I don't know, a year of courtship or whatever, they got married on Oahu, and my mother wearing a Japanese kimono. And they came back from Honolulu to, what's the name, Mahukona, on the Humu'ula, which is the cattle ship. And we still have the picture of my father in a suit, my mother in a suit, my grandfather, Hayashi, in a suit. And I said, they're all dressed up to ride this cattle boat. But that was the only means of transportation. But there was so much pride. But my mother said that when she got to Oea, and it was quite late at night, there were torches along the path, the Japanese style, with the pine tree or whatever, leading all the way to the camp, and my mother had come from, she was a city girl, and she lived in a nice house and so forth. So this was a new experience for her to come to live at Ho'ea camp. Yeah. But her sister-in-laws, Hatsuko Hayashi and Misayo Mike, and her mother-in-law, my grandma, Hayashi, and grandpa were there, and they had all the delicious Japanese food, spread out for them. She was so touched, and she said she could not have made it had it not been for all the love that the family showed. And so I just thrived on their stories. Am I going too much?
No, I'm not at all.
But growing up, I enjoyed my my years in Kohala, and I remember that we used to walk a lot. My mother used to walk to mail a package to her sister in Honolulu. She would walk from the Halaula cottage all the way to Hawaii to the Hawaiian Air, Aloha Airlines, whatever. There was a shop right at the corner to mail the package. And people would pick her up on the way. I remember my dad coaching a veterans league, and I have a photo someplace. This is right after World War II. He coached a baseball team. I think there was a Casimiro in there and some other. But he took pride, in all of his students and those, and Fred too. He was so proud of Fred because we said Fred really accomplished a lot. And of course, we had the same name. And so there were, a lot of things. Going to church. I remember going to the Chinese church down at the Gulch or whatever, the band, Bethany Church, and Mrs. Mrs. Yee. Yeah, Margaret Yap's mother was a Yee, and her husband was the pastor of that church, but I can still remember, going there and ringing the bell of the church. And then there was another church. What was the one at the corner going down?
Kohala Foreign Church. It was a church that Father. It was a church called Kohala Foreign Church, right at the corner of Halaula and Kunepuli, right by the corner.
But there was another church on the hill.
On the hill, just beyond that.
Just going down to Halaula Camp and the road going up there. Yeah. But anyway, we went to church there too. We also went to church at Kalahikiola Church. Yes. And I can still remember Reverend Margison way back.
Wow, you have a pretty good memory.
Yes, what I remember about is every Sunday we started the services off was with either Holy, 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 or When Morning Gilds the Sky. And I remember, too, that the girls from the boarding school would come. What's the name of that? Yeah, the girls' school. And I made some friends of some of the girls who lived in Kamuela, but went to school at Iole. And so that was so. And I remember, what was his name? James somebody, a Chinese name, Fong or some, who had a beautiful voice, who often was asked to sing.
The Fong family lived up in Iole, too. They're the ones that made poi. Yeah, they have a huge lo'i kalo up in Iole, and the Fong family were the poi vendors.
And one of them, I think Miss Luke, was part of that family and making poi. But I remember the poi came in cloth bags, so not the plastic in the containers, but cloth bags. So I remember my mother having to soak the bags because we always had poi, and clean the bags and wash them, and then return the bags to the poi factory.
This is Fred Cachola again, and Claire and I are talking story, and I really admired her dad because back in those days, the teachers did everything. Her father he taught math, science, English. We had a gardening project. He taught PE. He coached baseball. He also was in charge of the junior police officers who escorted. Nobody walked to school on your own. Back in the old days, everybody assembled and walked in one line, escorted by JPO. And then one line stood together all the way from Halaula store up to the school, maybe a mile and a half. But Fred Hayashi was responsible making sure that all the children went to school safely and came home safely, and he kept them together as a group using junior police officers. So,
yes,
so her dad was much more than just a classroom teacher. He was a lot more.
Yeah. One of the interesting stories is I can remember it was quite an honor to be selected to be on some kind of a court or whatever it was. There was a representative from each room, even going back to first grade. And if somebody disobeyed or broke the school rules, he or she had to appear at this court, and they were judged either guilty or not guilty. And I can remember asking someone, "What's guilty?" I was only in first grade, and I didn't know what guilty meant. And here we were supposed. Well, what happened if someone was deemed guilty? He had to go out and pull weeds. Remember the sleeping grass, that grass with thorns? The field was covered sometimes with the sleeping grass. So if it was a minor offense, he might have to pull 25 of them. But if it was a greater 50, or sometimes 100 or 200. But what amazed me was the fact that the kids would stay there, and my dad had to be out there sometimes till 3, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, watching this. but they never ran away.
You're listening to KNKR LP 96.1 Kohala Radio, and we're here at the 2015 Kohala Reunion live. We've got Fred Cachola, we've got Elaine Hahishi, we've got Bob Martin, and myself, Len Winkler, and they're reminiscing about what went on in the 30s. Well, that was your father. 40s, 50s, 60s. It's pretty interesting.
I'm curious.
This was, and of course, this was just during the Second World War, just before the Second World War. And when I haven't interviewed anybody about what Kohala was like during the Second World War, and if you haven't, maybe I can come back and tell you.
Well, actually, I was going to ask, when did you leave? When did you graduate?
Well, my father accepted a position at Konawaina because of Mr. Sutherland. Mr. Sutherland had been at Halaula School, and he enticed my father to accept a job at Konawaina, and so we moved in 1950. But I have some good stories about World War II.
We want to hear all of them.
those.
Yeah.
So you left in 1950. You left Kohala,
and I went to Kona.
and how were you when you went to Kona?
I was 10.
10. So, like Pearl Harbor, you were young.
Oh, yes, I was just a baby.
Baby then.
But I can still remember during the war having to go through drills where they put what they call bunny sacks over our heads with a little place, or I don't know what kind of material was used so you could see the eye, And the sacks had ears like they were tied at the corners. My brother, who was older, had an actual gas mask. But the thing that amazed me was if there were real, a poisonous gas, and all the younger ones would die because we didn't have any protection. But there is a ditch at the bottom, the Kalaula.
Yes.
There's a ditch there, and that's the remainder of what used to be a place that I guess we were supposed to hide or whatever.
Yeah, during the Second World War, this whole place just changed overnight, and we were very serious about being invaded by the Japanese. So immediately there was a formation of the community battalion, the Kohala Rifle, and their job was to protect the seacoast, the cliffs, Mount Kona Harbor, the water supply, the electric generating plant. This was serious. And at our school, the playground was deemed a place where gliders could land. So they put all this old machinery to scatter along the playground, so gliders and planes couldn't land on that field. And they left us just a small little space, enough to play softball.
How old were you? 1941?
I was 6 years old.
Okay.
I was in school. So and they dug a trench. It went zigzag, and I can take you there and show you exactly where the air raid trench was. It was an open trench, no cover. They planted gunduri beans as camouflage. And it was about 7 feet deep, about 4 feet wide. One section, one zig would hold 25 kids, one class, another zag, another class, another zig, another class. And I remember going down, and her mother, I think it was your mom, was my third grade teacher, and she said, we had to drill and march down into those trenches, and they would say, the plane is coming from the left, lean to the left. The plane is coming from the right, lean to the right. The bullets.
Oh, I got
The
it.
bullets would not. It would give you more shelter from spacing. This was really serious. And
Do you remember what happened to the sugarcane? Did the train stop running to Mahukona?
no, about Maukona Harbor was closed.
It was closed.
Yes.
So the train stopped working, and so did sugar wasn't shipped during that period of
They
time?
had to make more sugar, in fact, because sugar was a commodity that Kohala could contribute to the war.
And so where was it shipped? How did it get out of Kohala? Where did
I think it went to Hilo.
To Hilo. Okay.
Going back to World War II, well, one thing, we lived in the teachers' cottages, and we had, it was like a duplex, but on one side, our housing, our house, and the other side, we had these Caucasian teachers who came, and I remember one was from Minnesota, but I can still remember this so vividly. These Caucasian ladies must have befriended some people on who were training at Upolu Point, the people in the Air Force or whatever. But I can still see this plane coming over our cottage. I could see the pilot's face. And what he did was he drew out boxes of candy for the children. Yes, we could see them coming down to the ground. But, that's so startling to see this plane coming down over the roof of.
Oh yeah, I mean that's another whole interview about the Marines up in Waimea and using. They came down for target practice down at Kohala Point in Halaula, and all the houses had to be blacked out. Every house had to have an air raid shelter dug according to specifications. They were inspected to see if they were stocked correctly. There were lights out, there were curfew, civilian defense workers. I mean, it was another different world. It was an entirely different world. But going back to Claire and her dad, her mom was one of the kindest, warmest teachers I ever had, and she gave us an option during recess. We could go out and play, or we could stay in the classroom and listen to her read stories to us. And nobody went to recess.
Really?
We all came back to the room to listen to Mrs. Hayashi read stories. And it was very precious. And of course, her dad was one of those who first got me interested in history because, he did such a marvelous job talking about Greek, Roman, medieval, the ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia. I remember them all very well. And that's, and I majored in history, and I still consider myself a historian. And I think some of those seeds for being my interest in history and anthropology and archaeology and all that came when Fred Hayashi was my teacher in the 7th grade.
Well, anyway, my father and mother did influence. I'm sure their lives touched many. But I can still remember when I was in Konawaina, my father continued teaching his students, when they had what they called, was it the 7th period, whatever, and it was supposed to be study hall. But he said he realized that there were some people who didn't want to study. So he said, rather than just having them talk and waste time, he said, I'll take you out. Let's learn how to garden. I'll teach you some gardening skills. So he taught them, and they, planted tomatoes and beans and all, and, they were productive people. And years later, one of my classmates told me at Konawan, and she said, I got a job because of my gardening skills. And he said, that's because of your father. Your father instilled in me this desire to respect the land, the Aina, and to really learn to, produce vegetables and
Yeah, so a few years ago, Claire called me from Iowa. He says, Fred, my dad's getting old, and I think he should be interviewed and, recorded. And I said, of course he should. And at that time, Faye Mitchell was launching her projects, all history projects in Kohala. So I called Faye and said, Faye, we've got to go up and interview Fred Hayashi. And I informed him who he was. Claire's mom and dad were still living in Kona. Faye Mitchell and I went up there. We interviewed him. He showed us a trophy. We have photos of him holding that trophy, his graduation trophy from the University of Hawaii. And it was a wonderful interview. Faye didn't have time to transcribe it. I'm going to contact her. I saw Faye's mother in town just today. I got her contact. I'm going to interview her. We're going to get Claire. I promise. We're going to get that interview transcribed and published along with the photos And someday, hopefully, you'll see that in the Kohala Heritage Center. I promise. I promise you're going to do that because your parents deserve to be in the Kohala Pride Hall of Fame. They do. And next time we do this, I'll be sure that Mr. and Mrs. Hayashi are up there in the Kohala Pride.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much, Claire, for coming with us.
Yes, indeed, Claire. Thank you so much. Are you going to be here for long, or you're leaving Wednesday?
Puna.
Okay.
No.
When was the last time you were back in Kohala?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Probably 2 years ago or 3.
Oh, okay.
Whenever I came home, my dad always wanted to go. But after he passed on, it was more difficult for us to come. But we'll always remember Kohala. Kohala is a part of me. Yeah. And I will cherish all the memories and the friendships that I had. People
and still have.
And still have.
If you come back soon, I hope, we would always love to talk with you on the radio station and hear more about your
Thank you.
Your
It's
father.
such a pleasure.
You're welcome.
And I think it's just wonderful what you're doing.
Excuse me. By the way, guys, are you recording this interview?
Yes.
Well, that's good because we can maybe do a compilation of oral history from all the recordings that you have.
We can. In fact, they are going to be on our website, so you can listen to them again. All of them.
On demand, anytime you want.
Anytime you want.
Yeah, well, we can categorize them and
You can use them any way you like. In the Heritage Center, any way you like. Okay.
Okay, so if it comes to educators in Kohala, you've got to have Fred and Fred Hayashi. He's got to be in there.
Okay.
All right. Good.
And maybe Fred Cachola.
Yeah.
Federico. I think it would be the right way. Federico.
Okay.
When I come home and I hear people call me Junior, because that was...
Because you're so young.
Yeah, well...
I know.
Nobody called me Fred in the old days. That was my dad.
Okay. And you're listening to KNKR 96.1 Kohala Radio. I'm Len Winkler, and we're broadcasting live from the 2015 Kohala Reunion. And I think we have... so who do you want to bring next? It is past that. Yes, it is past. So we're supposed to have Boyd here, Boyd Bond at 3:10, and it's 3:13 right now. So, Carol T., you want to play? A little song, and then maybe come right back, and hopefully Boyd will be here by then.
Okay, we'll get some music on, and let me know when you want to come back.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you very much, Carol.
Thank you.
E hiva hiva o ko aloha e o e ho kahi au I ho ohi ai ko ili palu palu a me ko hone nahe nahe a mauloha no ho mehia e kuhui po mo e uhane hiki mai e kuhui po aloha wawia oi haoli au I no ho e mea a mauloha no mega hele maia me koli maha mama pa ko kino Pili me hau Moi maluhia ka ua Pili ka pu'uwai A uhane ki mai e kuibo aloha wawi a oe haoli a ino ho e mea a maoloa no ho mea Nakapuana ole loho hiki ku aloha hia oe o oe vale no ka mea i aloha ai a maaloha no mea Moe uhane ki mai e kuhi mo aloha wawi a oe haoli a ino ho e mea a maoloa no ho mea Amaloha no mea.
We're listening to John Kiave, and we're going back now live to the Kohala 2015
Now,
reunion
from
to
White
Len.
Man, we hear it.
Okay, Len.
Okay, we're back at the 2015 Kohala Reunion. I'm Len Winkler, along with Bob Martin here, and we have Margaret Willey, our District 9 Council member, and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
And Margaret, so we have a radio station in Kohala.
How fantastic.
And hopefully we will be able to disseminate a lot of information that Kohala never had before.
And that's what we need. And we need it across the island, but each community joining in and networking with each other and staying in communication.
And what kind of, so back, obviously, what issues are, like, that you're talking about currently that are really Kohala-centric?
Well, one is, I really feel, as I'm looking around, we're working on revising the general plan, and we've got different issues coming up. For example, mass transit is one that I'm a really big proponent of. So working on right now getting an intra-Kohala shuttle bus and also getting more connectivity down to the Kohala coast. But I think all of these things have to do with connecting people, whether it's the mass transit or the radio, and I think one of the problems, whether it's just us as a human being or the way we organize our thoughts, is to sort of do everything in silos and not sort of communicate as much as we need to. And as I started going through the list of all the subjects of what we need to do, I kept coming back to one thing is, well, maybe we need to do better what we're doing and be a little more organized. I mean, say like the North Kohala CDP committee, I've been trying to get a quorum on that. I try to call, just even figuring out, are there people in the queue? I thought there were people waiting and checking in. And so I keep feeling like the lines of communication, how can we strengthen our lines of communication? So that is just on the specific, something that's Kohala-centric or example would be, I feel we really need to have a reliable and frequent mass transit and get us where if you decide you want to take the bus from here to Kona and go for the day, you could do it and you could do the hubless and not feel that if otherwise you would catch the bus here at 6:45 in the morning, go to Kona, go to Waikoloa Village, go to the resorts. Kona, you get there 2 hours later, and then at 4 you're coming back. Nobody's going to do that. So, but I think in terms of the big picture and tying into the radio is how do we network better? How do we support each other better? And if, for me, as an elected official, how do we set up the structures and support the structures that would do that? So that's an example.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Has there been an outcry of the community to get better public transportation? I know that we just had that one bus that goes, so it is.
Yeah, so among the seniors, so I've been working with the senior club, and just this past week I met again with Tiffany Kai, who's the director of mass transit, and so I worked on a move to do an amendment to raise in the budget, move for a study, really look at it island-wide, how do we do this? And we got the council to do that, so we're now going to have big chunks. But then also, what about the immediate? So I'm actually going to work with the Waikoloa bus and try to partner with that bus and get something going as soon as I can work out the schedule. And it's really with the seniors and asking the bus driver, why can't we? Or right now, what I'd like to do is actually even have one more that goes to Waimea. So if you go to Waimea right now, you have to get text to 6:45 in the morning. Your stores you want to go to aren't open. The doctors aren't open, right? And then I think the one coming back is at 2:30 or 3. But if we had a 10:30 or 10:45, you could go up, do an errand, make a doctor's appointment, and come back. Mm-hmm. So it's, I think that I feel that, depending on automobiles is really unsustainable in the long run, and that we need to provide that structure. So when you say the interest, it's really come from meeting with the seniors that I've gotten involved in doing that.
You mentioned the community development plan, and I didn't quite understand. You were saying you didn't know if there were candidates to be on the...
right. So I know candidates have applied, and yet where are they? Why aren't they moving through? So I called the mayor's office the other day, and she didn't have any of the people on her list that I knew had applied. So I'm just saying, now I go find out where they are. And John Winter, who's the chair, said he knew of some people who were on the list and hadn't heard no. And then a year later, nothing's happened. So I don't mean to pick on that, but I'm just saying, as an example, the county, I look at it, what can we as a county, the county council, and as a county, the websites aren't up to date, the people on the list. Why is another big issue I'm working on is solid waste, and that's somewhat I can blame someone who's sitting across from me, who urged me to make it very clear that should be a priority for this council. And so I've been working on different proposals, but when we have a bill, we first route it through the Environmental Management Commission. And I think it's 3 out of the last 4 meetings have been canceled for lack of quorum and not enough members. So,
really?
Anyway, I'm not trying to focus on that. I'm just saying, the more like this kind of communication in the radio, and how can we, on the internet, I'm always, let's get this up to date and make it really friendly. I'd like everything to be available there. Well,
we certainly want to be part of the community and a major asset of the community, and we want to disseminate information that's important to the community. So if you have stuff that you want passed along, stuff like that, we're here for that.
That's great. And maybe at some point we could do it at once a month or
do it regularly. Yeah, the Margaret Willie Hour,
or the Margaret Willie Hour, or right.
I have a question about your the whole effort, which I really applaud, to allow people to sit into your council meetings here in Kohala, up at the old bank building. Is that working pretty well? And do you see any issues about communicating when that's going to happen or anything like that we could help you with?
I think the immediate issue is they're about to make it ADA accessible, and it's going to be closed while they're doing that. So that's probably starting September 28th or end of September through December. So I met with Clayton Hanma a few days ago and just saying, I don't want this, I want to get something in place, whether we do it. I would like the senior, where the senior meetings are, or else someplace down here, so that we don't lose that continuity. I mean, it's been very impressive, the number of testifiers.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. You're getting enough people, a lot of people in.
Yeah. So,
depending on the issue, right?
Yeah, depending on the issue.
GFO probably brought out a crowd, right? Or something like that. Or the trash unit.
Yeah, that's true.
Or if you were going to talk about a boat harbor in Mauna Kea.
Yes, so there, it is, and it's been, I just was thinking of the last meeting, I think it was our couple of meetings ago, and they're going around, how many people in Kau and how many people here and how many people in Kona. And then they said, and North Kohala, she said 17 or something, 12, what? And every place else was like 2 and 3.
And do you have anybody that wants to comment? No, nobody did give testimony.
Yeah, no, so they were all
in Kohala.
They were, so it was good because right at the beginning, I was sort of confronted with that in Kau, they set up a place in Kau, and there was very few people. So for me to set up another little hub, like an outlying area, well, if you want to do it, Marty, you pay for the whole thing because we don't expect you to get any people. And then, and then actually after I got it and got it passed, I got called in to a meeting by the administration and was told, no, we're now going to use that building for something else. And I'm sorry, Margaret, it's good, but we've now got other plans. And I just put my hand up. I said, no, this is done. And it happened. But, everything is, you're always competing and different agendas going on.
Yeah. I want to go back, and this is, you're in your second term, 2 more terms before your term limited, and your term is 2 years.
Yeah.
And so you're in your third year.
Correct.
3.5 years.
So 2.5 years.
2.5 years. And think back. I remember when you first started your campaign, Pete Hoffman was term limited, and you came over, and of course we had known you in Waimea from a lot of your outspoken efforts there. You've been elected now, and you attend your first council meeting. What did you say, oh my God, or what did you think when you first got officially involved as a councilwoman in this country?
What an opportunity.
What an opportunity, okay. There's a lot to be done.
There's a lot to be done, right. And that's how I feel. I want to be an octopus. I mean, I feel everything we really work on with intent and resolve, we accomplish.
Right.
One way or another, or it might be through compromise, or it might be, one of the things I found when I start thinking, okay, we ought to discuss this issue, and I say, okay, do a communication, say on marijuana or something. But if you do sort of this general thing, nobody comes in. So then I said, okay, from now on, I am just going to put my foot out there and take a stand, and then let people come in and not get worried that people are going to get mad at me.
Yeah.
What a concept.
Either way. And that if people have something to bang off of, oh, I don't like that. Oh, I really like that. Then people engage with it versus, what are your opinions on mass, something, the more amorphous and vague, you're not interested. But if you give them, okay, Margaret's coming out with that, oh my gosh, we better get in there and bang it around. And then I sort of carve it and I try to work with how can I best address all of the different concerns and minimize, the negatives and and try to really work on from that perspective.
How do your counterparts on the council think about North Kohala? Do they think, oh my God, that they're troublemakers, or you're representing people who are different? I mean, does North Kohala or Kohala here have a reputation? And if so, what is it?
I think they think of as a very strong community. A very strong community. I mean, I look at some of the other places, or like talking to Karen Eoff. You have a very, even holding this event. Where else have they held an event like this? And a sense of identity. And I think, in part, you have the advantage of you're somewhat isolated. You have a defined
it is an
area.
Advantage and
in other ways,
but it's a
disadvantage. But in terms of sense of place,
yes,
you have a defining. And I also feel that with Hawaii as a state and our island. I mean, why are we? Our island. Our island, our one canoe. We are all a part what we do, so that. Something happens on one side of the island, we feel that vibration.
The hurricane over there impacted us too.
I think why, in many ways, Hawaii ends up being somewhat on the forefront of issues. You can sort of, it's a defined place. And I mean, that's an example. And I think that sense of place and sense of community and sense of, you have so much history here. I mean, like that, that 7 of the top 7 places that are, even now, after so many things acquired for North Kohala, the Open Space Committee, the top 7 are here in North Kohala.
Right.
I mean, so you have so much heritage that's not just specific to this location, but it's Kamehameha, that this would be his breadbasket for the warriors and the people. So you have that sense.
But we also have a long list of accomplished leaders and that are proactive in getting the attention placed on.
So you have some very incredible, motivated people, and just look at those maps and everything that Tony Whittington has
I was thinking of
put together. I was just talking to Kim Takata, and we're going to do a resolution honoring Shiro, and she's saying, maybe I ought to just cut down and say the things he's done for youth, because it's just so long a list.
It'll take an hour.
Yeah, and it's so much. So I think that doesn't mean there aren't people in other areas, but I think it's also, this community also recognizes and acknowledges those, such as yourselves, and what you're doing, and appreciates that. And if you get too diverse and sort of not as, a defined area, it's hard. Everything you do, it's always, how do you slice the pizza and discuss this issue or deal with this issue? And it's always here where you have a sense of place, and it gives you that people feel more a part of that and part of something that's greater than themselves. And I think it's easier to feel that here.
Yeah, the volunteerism here is just enormous. The number of people who are actively involved in one way or the other in something that will benefit the community.
Now, one thing that I thought of for North Kohala is one additional model that's working very well in Waikoloa, is they have a leadership council. And what they do is they have one person who heads up each of the different organizations. And once a month, they all get together and talk about how different things intersect, and they do. And not everyone's there.
Concept,
but it's nice. It's sort of, and I feel that they, in terms of the communities in my area, they really coordinate well in terms of whether it's from the library committee to the, all the different committees. They work together and are more supportive and work on projects, whether it's, say, even the CDP and upgrading that and going through what are the things in our city we accomplished and what haven't we, and who do we have to help to support those.
That would be a large group in Kohala.
That would be a large group. It doesn't mean they're all there all the time, but it's
just
just
that point of view.
It's sort of bringing those people, together and it's pretty much like right now, the person who's head of it is the sort of the CDP chair, and he's working on it. But anyway, so a lot of there's always more that one can do to become connected. But
we're running out of time. I think we have a couple of people waiting, but with some hesitation, I want to ask you another question. Or from our point of view, looking over the mountain at Hilo, there seems to be and has been quite some time kind of a questionable disconnect between the executive branch and the legislative branch at the county level. Any comments about that, or whether you see it that way, or if so, is there something that could be improved there?
Yeah, could be a big improvement, I think, in that area. I really feel the mayor should really be meeting regularly with each council member and encourage more working with the different departments. Whereas I know a lot of the staff in the departments are, basically we're not here to relate and discuss things with council members.
Yes.
Or the Ag Advisory Committee. No, we can't, Margaret, I can't share this with you. You have to go to the director. Rather than what is there really to hide?
Aren't we all on the same team?
Are we on the same team?
Yes.
And so it's not a sense of some are, and then there's a lot of fears that if you speak out that you're going to be punished, retaliated, that you are not going to, your requests for funds for your district are not going to be as well received.
Yes.
And I think that's really, with the council members, sort of a fear that, is it okay with Billy?
Isn't politics fun?
Yeah. So, I just made a decision. I'm doing what I think is right.
The Willie approach. I think Willie approach. We're going to start calling it. So good for you.
Yeah, but then I never have to decide.
Yeah.
I never have to question. And I don't. Everybody, I think, I really feel our council, everyone on it, we don't all disagree on things, but everyone really intends and works to do what they think is the best and caring and stuff.
It's been great having you. And I look forward to many, many other sessions with you. And I hope the Kohala Radio can help you in what you have to do. Because I know it's a tough job to do what you're doing. And I appreciate you doing it for this community.
Well, I enjoy it. So,
all right. Thank you very much, Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret.
Aloha.
Appreciate it. Aloha. And I think we're going to continue. We have one more guest before we call it a day. It's 3:39 actually, here. And that was Margaret Willie, our council member for District 9, and very informative. And I'm sure we'll be hearing from her more on Kohala Radio. And here we have Boyd Bond, and Boyd has graciously stopped by to be our final guest for today's Sunday. And I think Boyd was out there listening to the taiko band, and which was doing very well.
And he's been MC all day, I believe.
Yeah, I got
you got double duty here.
Called in last minute to fill in for somebody who couldn't make it, and that's part of being in Kohala is backing each other up, filling in where you're needed.
Yep.
So I was happy to step in,
and that's part of what we've been talking about for 3 days: cohesiveness, the community working together, and everybody helping out.
That's definitely part of the joy of living here.
And being isolated, sort of, we are self-sufficient. We have to be, and that's part of what I've understood and I've learned in 3 days from talking to so many people. Is the famous saying, that's what makes me Kohala, So you will have roots here for how many? 200
6
years?
generations so far.
So 6 is what?
It goes back to 1841.
Okay.
My ancestors arrived here, part of the Iole Mission Station.
Yeah.
Took over for Reverend Bliss and his wife, who were done.
Toast.
Yeah, I guess, some people can handle the isolation and some can't.
Yeah.
And Reverend Bliss couldn't, so he left. And the bonds were supposed to go to Maui, but there was another couple, Mr. and Mrs. Rice, that were headed for Oregon. Mm-hmm. And they were supposed to stop in Honolulu and catch another ship to Oregon. And they found out that the mission station they were headed for had been burned to the ground in an Indian uprising. Everybody in the settlement had been killed, so they decided not to go to Oregon. And
safer here.
Safer here. And the position had opened up in Kohala, and so somehow they rolled the dice and sent the Rices to Maui instead, and the bonds ended up coming to Kohala to take over for Reverend Bliss.
Oh, wow. That's a story I'd never heard. Oh, my God. Otherwise, you would have been on Maui.
I might have been on Maui. Well, as luck would have it, my mom is a descendant of those Rices, and so my mom ends up marrying my dad, and those two families came together several generations later.
Amazing.
Oddly enough. Yeah. The Rices are all more famous on Kauai, I think, although there's Oski Rice Stadium up in Makawao, and there's also Rice Street in Lihue.
Yeah.
That's all from the same family.
So, you're really an historian in every way. You probably have more details about the history of Kohala from the plantation point of view, and currently, right? I mean,
well, I'm a storyteller. I come from a long line of storytellers, but I do endeavor to get the facts straight. I definitely have a love of history and an interest in history, and I certainly enjoy hearing stories as much as I enjoy telling them. There's so many great storytellers here, so many great stories to be told, and as many times as I can, I hear those stories, and I also enjoy sharing those stories. That's certainly true.
Do you have a specialty in Kohala history or in Hawaiian history that you prefer?
Ooh, that's difficult. I also do the natural history of the islands, so I enjoy talking about the time before people, how special and isolated the Hawaiian Islands are. We're like the endangered species capital of the United States.
Yeah.
I think something like 90 out of the top 100 endangered birds in the United States are Hawaiian birds.
Really?
We're definitely overrated in that department because of loss of habitat. And a lot of that goes back to sugar and ranching, the way the landscape changed with the introduction of Western industries, if you will. And so that's part of what I do. I love the natural history. But then I'm probably stronger in the 1700s, 1800s. And then once you round the corner, get into like World War I, other people do that. Have written books, and it's easier to track that because more people have lived that. But I certainly can hold my own. There's a lot of great World War II stories that my family has lived through that I learned, firsthand from them. And my family has been in the legislature for the territory and for the state, in forestry and the judiciary and the library system. So we have a lot of firsthand stories on all the islands. My dad was in sugar. He was a sugar man, and that means I'm a sugar baby. And it's kind of like the military. You get assigned to different plantations on different islands. That's how you advance in the company. So we grew up on all the islands, and I got to hang with cousins on all the different islands that we lived on. Right. And that gives me a perspective that's really island-wide. It's not just Kohala. It's from all over. I get to hear their stories, and then I also get to study in a more scholarly setting in the universities and other sources. And when I tell stories, I try and combine the places where the written history and the oral histories agree. And there's less chance of my being inaccurate when I do that.
That's amazing, because I've done some work in oral histories, and there are oral histories and oral histories and oral histories and oral histories all about the same thing. And sometimes they agree, and sometimes they are not even compatible. And they seem to be family-based to some extent too. Like who had some axe to grind about the history. So do you look at that in terms of the pre-contact, the oral history period, and you study that and kind of, like you say, try to find the truth? And
well, you certainly can. In the Hawaiian genealogies, they're all makua, their family ancestors. One family might be descended from the rooster, and another might be descended from the pig.
Yeah.
And in the famous story of the battle of the rooster and the pig, the rooster family is going to talk about how the rooster won, and the pig family is going to talk about how the pig won. But the other elements of the story remain the same.
Yes.
The time period, the location, the weather, the conditions of the battle, those things are constant, even if the two sides of the two different families tell different stories, or the story has a different ending.
Yes.
The other elements of the story remain the same, pretty stable. And so there's a lot of truth that can be gleaned, even if the story on the face seems to be very different.
Yeah. It occurs to me that in Kohala there are a lot of people who are curious about the history here, whether it's the plantation era or the missionary era, or even pre-contact. And so communicating that in a storytelling way like you enjoy might be really good for us to do on the radio.
Well, I do a series of presentations at the Kohala Library,
Yes.
and I'm sponsored by the Friends of the Library, which is very generous of them, usually in the winter months, so October, November, December, August, September, those types. And originally the goal was to catch the snowbirds that are coming to Hawaii in those winter months to get away from wherever their snowy hometown is, and try and inform them about the history of this place that they live in sometimes, or even newcomers that have decided to make this place their home, bring them up to speed on some of the background of the people here. And that means I was talking mostly about Kamehameha, our favorite son, a lot of his extended family, those people like Naiole that kept him safely in his young life and helped to raise him into the warrior that he became. And after we had not exhausted, but covered a wide range of the Kamehameha tale, I began to branch out into other aspects, covering things like sugar and ranching, whaling industry, immigration, number of issues that either directly affected Kohala or Kohala played a part in, or sometimes just on a broader scale, the islands in general, and our connections to Asia and to the West Coast that go way back, to the very beginning days of the kingdom.
Were any of those lectures at the library recorded?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, what a
Not
loss.
at this time.
But one of the things we'd like to do is to maybe recreate those and get them on record. It's so fabulous that what you do, it needs to be recorded.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't. Okay. Yeah, I might want to do that. I think somebody's trying to help me put together like DVDs or CDs that I might make available for people and sell them on a website or some such thing.
Well, if you do that thing on the radio, we'll record it and you'll have it, and so will everybody else have an
That would be
opportunity.
one way.
Because I've never been able to make it to the library. It's one of fireworks on 4th of July. It's one of my disappointments. I just can't get. I don't know. Every time I have a conflict, so I'd love to have a way to go online or someplace and say, all right, I want to hear this lecture today. It's going to take my time and listen to it. So.
When I get a chance, usually those happen on Monday night at the libraries, on a Monday night. And then I'm also able to present down at the Lyman Museum. And those sometimes also happen on Monday nights. Hulihe'e Palace from time to time, down at Pu'uhonua Ohonau now. Got a chance a couple times there. So wherever I get a chance, Kona Library, anytime I get a venue.
Yeah.
I'm more
Well,
than
we
happy
have a
to,
venue now in Kohala, too.
Because, the radio
yeah, you got it.
We're probably overselling us. So I tell you what, I don't know. I'm fascinated with everything you talk about.
So we have so many storytellers here, and I think I'm probably more comfortable in front of a crowd. I come from a large family, and so that makes it easy to practice being in front of groups. Other people, not so much. They might be a little shy. You need to entice the stories from them, but we really are. There's no shortage of great storytellers in Hawaii or in Kohala that really have a great story to tell that is much more personal, from their own family.
We can put you in that group studio and have a whole large audience right there to ask you questions if you like.
Nani Fenton did a great storytelling session down in her garden yesterday, and sadly there was a tree fall in the Halawa Gulch that blocked the road.
It blocked me
during the hours that she was presenting, but it absolutely rocked. She brought us to tears. It was a fantastic.
We're trying to get her involved too. So.
That news story that the tree that fell, we had a gentleman who's from the high school who has been to a couple of our Kohala radio meetings, and he happened to be there, and he has our KNKR Instagram app and our account, and he posted a video and pictures of it first thing and we were first. And then they had it here. The police told us, and so they recorded it. But we had it online, and we had over 400 people. Seriously, that viewed that video, and that's of a
broken
tree.
branch.
Yeah, of a broken branch. But over here, I mean, who ever heard of such a thing? So the news does work here.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's really what we wanted the radio station to be all about. It's, you have a hurricane coming through, and all you get to hear about is what Maui's doing.
Exactly.
So it's really fabulous that we get, immediate coverage of
That's
things that affect our
dream.
traffic here, certainly. And you say a branch, but it happened right around the corner from my house.
Okay.
And it was thicker
More
up
than
than
a
I
branch.
am. Yeah. It was a couple of branches, and they pulled down a power line, and it was really quite a mess.
Yeah.
All of us in the neighborhood went down, speaking of Kohala coming together, with our chainsaws to see if it was something we could clean up right away, and it wasn't something we could clean up right away. So they went ahead and pulled in the big guns and the heavy trucks, and it still took them a couple of hours to get the tree cleared, and then it took Helco a while to get the wires back up.
I think it was like 8:20, if I'm not mistaken, that the police said that both lanes were open. That the lanes were open in both directions.
Because it was between around 12:15, 12:30 that they fell, and we heard the noise from the house. So it made a big noise. We walked out to see. We went down and participated in the event at Nunny's Garden, and that ended about 5:30. And when we came back to rejoin the reunion here at the gym, the park, that was about the 5:30 to 6 range, and they only had the one lane.
One lane,
right?
time. That was you're on the eastern side of the branch.
Yeah, just inside Kohala.
How many people were at Nani's?
No more than a dozen.
A dozen.
Yeah, it was a small group. Yeah. Those of us that were already on that side that couldn't get out.
I think Giovanna was supposed to go down, and she was leaving her house.
Frustrated.
She was very. I talked to her about it.
There's a couple from Australia that just happened on someone in Pololu said it was going on, and so they wandered down the path and joined us. And
oh my God!
You figure visitors are always looking for the authentic Hawaiian experience.
Well, that's it.
Those guys wandered into it. People would pay big money for that, and they got it for free.
And we got a news story on the second day of existence, so we were not prepared, but we were learning as we go.
And we're hardly prepared for anything.
We're prepared now. No,
we're not.
Well, that's how we learn is learn by doing. Definitely, the more times we get it right, then. The better prepared we are for next time.
What else would you like to say about anything coming in your future? Or what's up for you?
Well, I don't know. For me, I'm still looking for work. Any other venues that I would have an opportunity. I know there's a Waimea seniors are coming up in October, I believe, to tour some of the places in Kohala, and they've asked me to come and be their narrator, and I'm more than happy to do that. July 20th, is it? The Monday later this month, I'll be at the Bond Library, and we're going to be discussing the relationships of water, the freshwater and saltwater, where they meet at the shore, and then how water works in Hawaii, the native fauna, which is kind of a unique thing to have freshwater native species in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So I figured that one out. Yeah. But then also looking at Kanawai, the old code of sharing water in ancient times, and comparing that to how we're using water today and some of the things that we're up against. Some people that are at this reunion remember there was a 30-year drought in Kohala from the 1920s to the 1950s, which certainly affected the plantation and agriculture in general. And the Kohala ditch was completed in 1906, and that was a lot of foresight, because without the ditch, the plantation would not have survived.
Right.
So, drought is something that reoccurs. We recently came out of a 5-year drought that stung a lot of our agricultural people, and that was really just a drop in the bucket, so to speak, a very small rendition of what can sometimes be a very long event. And with global warming, I think looking at drought conditions and looking at water usage is something that we need to pay attention to more and more. So we'll be doing that later this month.
Is there thinking that the rise of the ocean may affect our aquifers here on the island, or is that not been...
Yes and no. The rise of the ocean will affect shoreline. The ocean provides us with water. Evaporation from the ocean runs into the mountains, condenses, and then falls as rain. But it's, where the temperature balance is affects that cycle, that water cycle. So ocean rise, shoreline rise is a part of the story, but it's not a direct cause of the way water is going to be affected in the mountains. But underneath the water table, salt water is seeping in below the ocean level, sea level, and fresh water is percolating down through the stones and then sits on that saltwater layer. So the more salt water that moves inland as sea level rises, that's going to push the freshwater lens further uphill, meaning that some of the wells closer to shore now might end up being brackish wells in a little while, and that's something that we need to consider. You can still grow things with brackish water, but not as much and not so happily. Salt is a mineral, but too much salt is
and can't
not
drink
good.
it.
You can, but
okay,
it makes you thirsty.
It's a pretty strange thing. You can drink water, but then
but tomorrow too. Monday is a work day for a lot of people. We understand that, but the reunion will continue one more day. And starting at 9 in the morning, we're going to begin looking at the future of Kohala. So there'll be an introduction by some of the moderators. David Fuertes and his gang will be leading or doing an introduction to the CDP, our county development plan, and then doing some ground rules for what the breakout sessions will be about. And then we're going to go ahead and break out into things like water usage and management, view planes and erosion control, health and wellness, housing. Affordable housing is a big issue. What are some of the other agriculture? And all of these things, I think I'm missing one, but things that are topical going forward. We'll break into groups. We'll discuss those things. We'll come back real quickly and then take a break for lunch, and then there'll be a recap covering those things with Jim Shannon and David Fuertes, and all of that's going to be outside
on
the main stage.
Under the tent?
Yeah, under the main tent.
Under the main stage or the tent?
Both. We're going to be under the tent as we begin. We might break out into corners of the tent, just to make use of the shade. It will probably be as hot as it's been the last few days. But then they will direct when we get back together and we recap, they're going to direct that from the main stage towards the crowd in the big tent. So that everybody has a chance to participate. The sound systems will still be working.
So we've been trying to figure out how to cover that from the radio's point of view. So we have our homework to do here.
Yeah, a little bit.
We got to get some power out there a little bit.
Shouldn't be a challenge. There's power run out there already for the
stage
sound
anyway.
Yeah,
but not in the tent apparently. So
well, there's lights there, so you should be able to jack off the power source to the lights.
Okay, good.
I don't think it's that big an issue.
Good. We are battery powered too, so
there you go.
So we gotta figure it out. So it's a new challenge for us. Another learning curve.
Great. And then we can put that to use later.
Absolutely.
And then there'll be music. Kupuka'a is going to perform from 2 to 3, and I'm not aware of other bands after that, so I think that's going to be when we wrap up the reunion for 2015. And we're looking for a chairman for 2020. We're already going to start planning for the next one in the next 5 years.
All right. That sounds great. Boy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure to talk with you.
And don't be a stranger to Kohala Radio.
Not at all. I happened to be in Hilo when you did the DJ training, so I had to miss it.
Okay.
I was down doing a 3-day presentation there. But next time you have one, I would love to get involved.
Anytime you want one, I'll be happy to give you a personal training.
Wow, thank you. Thank you.
On
that.
No schedule. But on your schedule. But we do it that way for others too. So it's not, I don't want it to feel.
Oh, that's fine.
But truthfully, we will.
We're tailoring our training to those people who need different ways to do it.
Absolutely.
Excellent. The more the merrier.
Absolutely.
We can build program in Kohala. That's great.
That's right. We cannot build programming without programmers, people who want to do the program.
Sure.
Okay, boy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Boy.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Okay, aloha.
Aloha.
And
so, Mr. Winkler,
Mr. Martin,
we've been into a long day and 3 days into the reunion. We're still alive. What else can we say about that?
It's been a very invigorating and learning experience in more ways than one. We've learned a lot of the trials and tribulations of doing a remote and doing a radio
in Kohala. In
Kohala. And we've learned a lot about Kohala, and we've talked to a bunch of people, got a bunch of great interviews, which I can't wait to have them all uploaded and people could listen at their leisure. And we're going to be on again tomorrow at 10 a.m. live. And not sure how long we'll be on tomorrow, but we'll be on for at least 10 to noon. And we look forward to that.
Yeah, so we're probably going to miss the opening of the David Fuertes piece on the future. So we'll have to figure out, and then we'll let you know, the listening audience, how we're going to cover that. Because it is going to be some interesting stuff emerge from that towards the end of the session. So we'll continue tomorrow, and thank you for listening.
Okay, and I say aloha from the 2015 Kohala Reunion We're KNKRLP 96.1 Kohala Radio, and I'm giving it back to the studio and Carl T.
Okay, Len. Yeah, very good job. Good interviews, and thank you. All right.
Thank you very much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, we'll be on the air from 10 to 12 rather, tomorrow. That's a Monday, with the 2015 reunion with Len and Bob. All right. Well, that about shuts down our broadcast day. It is 4:01, and we'll just end up with some music from David Gomes. You're listening, and hopefully tune in tomorrow. KNKR 96.1 LP in Hawaii, Hawaii. Aloha.